All right, so I'll kick this off and then I'm going to turn it over to Holly and Helen, and they can tell me where where to go in a very polite manner, so that I can visit websites or other things we're talking about and interested in. Um, Hopefully you're all doing well. I know most people have started curbside or just about to start curbside, and we're really interested in hearing how all of you in Interlibrary Loan are adapting and how you're changing your processes and what you're doing. So um, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Holly and Helen to kind of moderate discussion.
Helen, did you want to start or do you want me to start?
I can start. We can just go around and you guys can unmute yourself. I think we can all unmute ourselves. I don't think I have anybody muted on my end. So we can just, well, let's start with me. My name's Helen Pinder. I am the resource sharing consultant here at SWAN. And my co-chair, Holly.
I'm Holly Szpara. I am one of the ILL people at the St. Charles Public Library, along with Vicki McFarland.
And let's see if I can unmute. I cannot unmute, so I'm just going to call off names.
I was going to go, hi, I'm Jerry Kane from Carroll Stream Public Library.
Okay.
Morning.
Morning. I'm just going to go down the line. When I call out your name, just unmute yourself, say hi, where you're from, something interesting that happened to you this week, maybe something like that. Okay. I see next in my queue is Dawn.
Oh, hi, I'm Dawn Tortorella from SWAN. And something interesting that happened to me is I got notified by my library that I can pick up my items today, first day of curbside at Riverside Public Library. So I'm very excited.
Nice.
That is exciting. Vicki McFarland.
Good morning, everyone. Something exciting this week. Let's see, I got the invitations for my granddaughter's bridal shower that's supposed to be in July, so we'll see what happens.
Nice.
That'll be awesome. Susie Lahuda. And Susie, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
And if you guys just want to say hi in chat, that's fine too.
Yeah, I should open the chat panel, shouldn't I? Okay. So it's too far. Next, I've got Susan Crass.
Good morning. I'm Susan Crass from the Geneva Library. And I guess what's exciting for me is I started working back in the building, which is our new building. And so that's been quite a learning experience. We're working in shifts. So there's some people who work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the building, and then I'm on the shift that works Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the building. And then there's a group of people who aren't working in the building yet. And so we got a lot of new things to learn.
It's exciting that you're in your new building. Susan, I see you in the chat. Say hi. I don't have the mic on my desktop. I'm Susan Crow from the LaGrange Public Library, busy with our second week of curbside. Welcome, Susan. Susan Dines. And Susan, you're muted, so if you're talking, we can't hear you. Feel free to throw something in the chat. Oh. Thanks, Tiffany. Tiffany, if you have a mic, you're up next. Okay. All right, lurkers are welcome.
I like lurking.
Lori, and you're off the page. Lori, I can't see all of your last name, but
Gornick, probably,
Gornick.
Right, Lori?
And Lori may be lurking as well. A lot of lurkers today. Marcy Biala.
Good morning. I'm Marcy Viala with Westmont Library. Trying to think if there's anything exciting this week. Not really, except, I mean, we're in our third week of curbside and patrons have been overwhelmingly positive. So I get that's been really nice. So
That's nice that everybody's adjusting to the new service models so well, and in some cases enthusiastically.
Oh.
Right.
Okay, Jerry, we got you. Sue Ross, I don't think we've heard from you. And Sue, I think you're muted, or you? Okay. Chris Lavault.
I just want to say I'm impressed by the number of Sues that we have.
Okay, Peggy Carey, you're up next.
Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm from the National University of Health Sciences, and we've kind of been maintaining throughout this whole thing. So we're open for our students on very limited hours. We're alternating staff 1 day a week. We have a responsibility of running the library. And I just want to kind of put a shout out there. If you need some professional health science articles, we're here to service you. So looking forward to the meeting today.
And there's Helen in the chat, Lori said that they're averaging 60 to 70 pickups at Glen Ellen, and they're happy for their drive-up window, she says.
Yeah, that's really cool. That feels like a lot.
That does feel like a lot.
I don't have a lot to base that on, but that feels like a lot.
I don't know. We'll have to find out what everybody's kind of like, what numbers they have, because it does feel like a lot to me.
Yeah. Okay, and Mary Fee, I see you in the chat, so I'm assuming you don't have a microphone as well. So welcome, Mary. Pam, I think just popped in here. Welcome, Pam. And oh, my queue just shuffled. I see Jessica. And
so Mary Fee from Batavia just updated saying we are open today and there will be a BLM event in downtown Batavia. So we will close for the afternoon today.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear too from all of you if the Black Lives Matter, events and kind of the showing up in the community is impacting things as well, and how you're all supporting your community in these times too.
I think the Black Lives Movement or Matters in Batavia was supposed to start today at 12:30, and it was supposed to be a sit-in, but depending on this rain, I think we'll see what happens.
okay, so if you popped in a little bit late and you want to introduce yourself, just go ahead and unmute yourself, say where you're from, and whether or not anything interesting is happening to you personally or professionally this week. Otherwise, we'll get started.
All right, so yeah, do we want to talk a little bit about how interlibrary loan and resource sharing has kind of shifted all of your activities, and what have you changed? Like, have you started maybe purchasing more, working with your collectors more to get things that people have requested? I'm just very curious, when we got that hard stop and things were in flux, how you all have adjusted.
Well, I'll start at St. Charles. We were fortunate because we had already closed down because of our move. So we had very few interlibrary loan items that were out in the world. I think, I don't know, Vicki probably knows this better than I do, but I think we only have 16 right now, which is that's not very many. Funny story though, we have had a library that, it's a university library, and I think it's in Missouri, and they have been harassing us because we had forgotten to return their cloth bag with one of their items in it. And so during the entire quarantine, they've been sending us emails saying, we want our cloth bag back and we are going to charge you for it. It's just been it's kind of funny, a different plane, because, being close to Chicago, we have a different perspective. But anyway, so right now there's been a lot of talk about, and there had been before actually, so I can't really blame this on COVID, but about purchasing more items for our patrons as opposed to interlibrary loaning, and of course that conversation's gotten ramped up since this whole event started. So, but we also, because we have moved, our library is in a temporary location in a former middle school, and our collection is kind of scattered in classrooms in one wing of the building. So we've had to pare down our collection quite a bit. So it'll be interesting going forward. We're going to have to balance our space issue with our wanting to purchase things. And of course, purchasing is not, I mean, it costs money to purchase in labor, time, cataloging, and all that stuff too. So it'll be an interesting going forward from here. So. Anybody else?
I can add to that. We received 40 boxes yesterday at St. Charles. So we are processing new items, and we were receiving a couple things through the COVID when we were at home. Our supervisor, Amanda, would go in and check some things in, receive them. So we've been processing that backlog, but we did a really good job yesterday. So our librarians are anxious to get them on the new shelves, and so we're progressing.
So Jessica just put on the chat that they got 25 boxes yesterday. Jessica, where are you from? When you, I'll read your, if you don't have, I'll read the chat, but which library? Oh, Frankfurt. Okay, so Jessica's in Frankfurt.
And if you don't have a mic, you can just drop your stuff in the chat, and I think we can all see it.
Yeah, and Peggy did bring up, the change in collection development being more in the e-resource arena, and I'm sure a lot of you have, for new material, have done some shifting in that arena as well. But I'm thinking a lot of what we do in interlibrary loan, especially outside of SWAN, are those materials that are kind of rare, harder to get. Otherwise, we would be getting them within systems. So I'm thinking probably those items, there's going to continue to be a demand, and trying to locate those items is probably very tricky.
Yeah, we've actually thought about, we had kind of we really didn't want to be purchasing things used from, let's say, Amazon or Alibris, but we're kind of changing our tune a little bit there. We've had pretty good luck with them. So, but yeah, you're right that there's a lot of stuff out there you just can't get unless you go to, I had a patron who was looking for viticulture stuff. So we were going to universities in California for that, obviously. So.
Wow.
Lori says she got an item from Kansas yesterday.
Yay. So, well, that brings up a question then. So Lori, have you resumed interlibrary loan then in full at your library? And who else has done that? We have not.
This is Susan Kratz. And
Hi, Susan.
we're in a similar situation to you, Holly, where we had shut down Interlibrary Loan at the beginning of March in anticipation of moving to our new building. So we have not yet resumed that either, borrowing or lending.
So we had an interesting discussion yesterday, Amanda and I, about Interlibrary Loan, because we were talking about, we are starting our curbside on the 10th, and I had asked her, I said, well, are we going to be starting our Interlibrary Loan at the same time? And so we had talked about with Rails being down, and so we can't be shifting material between, Illinois libraries. And we talked about whether it was fair to do out-of-state loans when we're not doing in-state loans. So I was kind of curious what everybody thought about that. I mean, do you think opening up Interlibrary Loan right now, is that something that's on your agenda, or are you waiting until Rails resumes full delivery so you can borrow from downstate? Are you willing to pay to get things mailed from, let's say, Peoria?
Can I just speak to this? This is Peggy at National University of Health Sciences. And because we've sort of been maintaining throughout, I have received items in the mail. I think Illinois College sent something that was needed. And I have also received something from San Diego that a faculty member requested through the mail, of course. But the hang up with that was they're not open on OCLC. So I kind of circumvented the system, and I went ahead and took a chance and emailed, and they responded to that. And so sometimes our systems aren't really responding as quickly, meaning our electronic way of doing things, but it is possible to kind of go, I suppose, go above and beyond, or below and beyond.
Peggy, actually, Helen and I were discussing that very topic this morning, thinking, while all of our libraries in OCLC supplier status are right now set to no, we said the same thing. There's always a way by reaching out and contacting a library that may have that one copy you need for a patron doing research. So yeah, I think that it's kind of nice to know that when the systems, the automation breaks down, the human beings still find a way to make things happen. So that's good.
Does anybody else know when they're going to restart their Interlibrary Loan? Have you started?
I'm trying to figure out what that noise is.
I'm wondering what that is too.
A galloping horse?
I don't know. It's really interesting.
I think it's a clackety keyboard.
Oh,
I bet you're right. I was imagining somebody was rolling out pasta.
Yeah,
One of those
I had it being a game. It was something far more fun than a keyboard in my mind.
Way to be practical, Scott.
All right, is everybody waiting for Rails to reopen? What is everybody's thought on that? I'm just curious. Chat? Dawn, is there any news from Rails about resuming service?
There is, and you know what? Let me try and find that. Let me open a new window. Let's see. I'll go here. They put something out late yesterday. The LSAPs are having a meeting, I think, next week to talk about this. But let's just look at. Does anybody have a direct link to that news?
Because Heartland reopened, right, Dawn? I mean, have they reinstituted service already?
I believe they are delivering between their libraries.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Although I think they were significantly less impacted downstate than we've been certainly up here in the northern end.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna attempt to find this in, whoops, that's the wrong link. To find that link in my email, I'll go back to here, but I could be giving you wrong dates, but this is the preliminary. Rails will do 2 deliveries to they're going to sort everything that is currently in direct delivery to the home library, the owning library of the item. So they're resorting all of our stuff. They will then be making deliveries on the 18th, June 18th, and June 25th, I believe. I'll try and find
Yes, I
that.
believe you're right.
And then, Jerry, just forward.
Yes, the 18th and the 25th. Don, you're right.
Okay, so it might be
I forwarded you the
Jerry's
wrong thing,
forwarded.
Dawn, sorry.
Oh, okay, well, this is interesting too, Jerry. So this is on their sorting, the RFI for sorting and delivery, but they did send something. I know I have it in my email, so I just need to find it. I have multiple things open on both my screens, so it's just a little awkward here, but I will find it. But Helen confirmed those dates, and then the goal is that they would resume. Okay, I think I got it now. This was posted. I'm not exactly sure where this was posted. And I'm going to share this in chat, this link. Okay. And hopefully, oh, did I lose it? Where did it go? Here it is. All right. Yeah, so they will return any items that we have from your library on June 18th and 25th. If they will be picking anything up at that point, I'm thinking not, but I'm not sure. I think these are deliveries only. And then on the 29th, they are looking to start receiving delivery for those libraries that are open. One of the challenges SWAN too is there are a handful of libraries that we have never even heard from since the closures. So we don't know, do you have staff available to clear your book drops, all of that stuff. So we're working to make sure that we get that updated information from all SWAN libraries, and then you just magnify that communication with Rails, so they're having problems making sure who wants delivery, who does not. So we'll be having more information as we know it, but this is the current plan, and just some things to keep in mind that definitely are going to impact all of us is, they have no way of predicting when those drivers are going to arrive at your locations. So that may be problematic in terms of staffing. So you may have to start targeting those delivery days on those Thursdays of having staff around for longer periods until you've confirmed you've got your deliveries. And they require that everything be quarantined at the member library. So that means when we do start getting back into full swing and we are sending things out as well as receiving things, we're going to have the quarantine on both sides of that transaction. So if you are quarantining for 7 days, if you think about it, a bin comes in, you got to quarantine that for 7 days. Then if you process those items, say on day 8, and you create a bin to go out to Rails, that is fine because that material has been quarantined. But if things are, as you're preparing items, if they're coming in from book drop, you have to make sure that they're going through that quarantine process before you're processing a bin for Rails. Now we are trying to get a verification of quarantining process? Do we have to add 7 days on both ends of that transaction, or at which point do we consider material clean? You know, does our staff, you know, is our staff considered clean in processing, or does that bin have to sit somewhere waiting for 7 days for rails to pick it up? So just a lot of, you know, questions and not real clear on what that really means for all of us. We also think that this, somewhere it says, okay, libraries must not use Rails blue bin containers to quarantine materials. But the way I'm seeing the quarantine process handling is we all get our bins, and that bin is quarantined for 7 days. So while we're not using the bins to quarantine material, we are quarantining the incoming bin because the bin is potentially just as contaminated as the things in it. So it's complicated. Now you all talk and share your thoughts on all of this.
Don and I were talking about this morning, about that, not how they said that they don't want us to quarantine items in bins, but as Don just said, you kind of have to, because they come in, they have to sit. So we thought it would be a good idea to just kind of throw out there and remind everybody, don't stockpile bins. Turn those around as soon as you can. Get them back into the flow so that maybe they change their mind about that statement and not quarantining things in the bins, because I think they're just worried that we're going to hoard them, the bins. So yeah, turn those around as soon as you possibly can, please.
Yeah, so you kind of will, the bin will become out of quarantine at the same time the items within that bin. So that bin needs to then go back to Rails, either full or empty.
Yeah, flip those bins as soon as you can.
Can I ask a question? I just joined. I'm sorry I'm late. This is Debbie Sheehan.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. We have many, many boxes of items, cardboard boxes now of items. Will a delivery take those cardboard boxes?
We can ask them that.
We ran out of blue bins quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So we've been using like the Baker and Taylor boxes to put the ILLs in. So I just wanted to know if they would take those, or do we have to transfer everything into blue bins?
Yeah, we'll certainly ask them that.
Okay, thanks, Dawn.
I was just going to bring that up because I know they used to take the boxes. I had just unmuted when you asked that, so it's like we're on the same wavelength here, Debbie. They used to take boxes before, but now I don't know if they will. I would think they would want the box over the plastic bin, but we'll see what they say.
But a lot of recyclables for them to deal with then with all that cardboard, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, let them keep using it, right?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, it's a lot easier. They're smaller, so in some respects, it's easier for us to move them.
I guess another question they'll probably ask is, are all the items in those boxes designated for a particular location, or are they going to have to sort them? Because they do have their physical space arranged to accommodate the size of a bin.
I can tell you from our perspective, the only items that we have pre-sorted are the 3 libraries closest to us, which is Downers, Woodridge, and Westmont. Everything else is not sorted, so they're all mixed up just as they normally would.
So we'll ask that question too, because it may be a different answer depending on that. If they can just ship it, you know, it's all intact and it's going to another location, it probably is easier for them than having to unload the boxes and then resort.
Okay. But you'll let us know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Going back to the agenda, which is not where I left it.
I got it on the screen, Helen.
Thank you. So Don, if I can ask you to drive to WorldShare, we can see where I put those closures on. So back in March, mid-March, when all this started going down, I closed you all in OCLC, and then I added an extension later on in April that closes all of you through July 1st. So if you do want to start being supplier again, and you want to remove that closure, Dawn's going to show you how to get in there, and you can just delete your own closure. Otherwise, you can leave it in place. It'll expire automatically on July 1st, unless we put another one on there. And I'm happy to go through and do that all one by one.
So you, from your World Share Interlibrary Loan homepage, you go to the OCLC policies directory, and then Helen will walk us through where that's at.
Yeah, if you click on the 4th tab for schedule, and then you'll see on there for SWAN, we're not closed, so this doesn't show you, but for library renovation, if you would just
Do you want me to go into another one?
yeah, if you want to go to
else's?
Acorn.
Okay.
Acorn's got both of them in place.
Okay. Close that. Okay. And now the way I find where Acorns is at, I go to the SWAN support site. And I think this page is more helpful for us than any of you, but I'm going to tell you it's here. So into documentation, interlibrary loan, and we have a link to all of the World Share Management Services links and your discovery links, as well as your open access or Open Athens IP addresses. And I'm going to head over to Acorn, and you can see OCLC symbols and all that good stuff. Make this bigger. It's tiny. All right, so I'm heading back to the policies directory for Acorn now, and we'll look at their schedule.
Yeah, so you can see the initial COVID-19 closure that was going through May 1st, back in those very optimistic days. And then back on April 16th, I applied the second one to extend us through July 1st. Yes, and Peggy, I didn't touch national because I knew you guys were still supplying.
So if we wanted
Sorry,
to edit this, Helen, we would just go into edit, correct?
You can edit it, but if you edit it, then that start date will be tomorrow. So I find it's easier just to apply a second one, which is why there's two there. Extension.
Did you call it a calamity?
I just called it closed. I have been accused of being hyperbolic during my career, and I'm trying to fix that.
So this is a very awkward little widget here. So we would start this one July 1, you're saying, since it's a new one?
You could start at July 1. You could start at June 30th. I don't think any overlap is going to matter. But I will do that for everybody if we decide to extend the closures through August. But if you want to take it off, you can just go ahead and you can just delete that closure extension. There were a couple of libraries who had already created them, and if you already had a COVID closure in place, I didn't touch it.
And you could go ahead and add a note, because remember that all of your policies are visible to anyone in the in the world that is in resource sharing. So you could say we will consider requests via email, or reach out in the case like, who was it? Jessica got something from Kansas. So,
Yes.
okay. And you could save that. And then.
Yeah, so like the matter of course requests would be, you would show closed, but if somebody really needed something for your collection, then that opens the door for them to reach out person to person and request it.
And since we used Acorn as the guinea pig, is anybody from Acorn here? We should probably delete this and you can start all over again, Helen.
I have a system down now. It works pretty well.
So what are you all thinking? Like, what are your thoughts? The problem is if you're not keeping an eye on your interlibrary loan request queues, those things are just sitting, for 2 days or 4 days, whatever your policies show. And it's almost better if you're saying no immediately, through not being a supplier, because then libraries that are supplying can be the ones targeted for any request.
Is anybody super keen to start supplying again? That sounds like a no to me.
Holly shook her head yes.
Okay. Holly, I don't have
I mean, there's just a lot of logistics involved, obviously, but yeah, I would like to. I mean, the advantage, I was kind of thinking about the whole mail thing, is that by the time you package it up and it gets mailed, because mail's been very slow now, and it gets there, it's sort of like, it's very easy to quarantine mail. And so that part of it, I think, woo-hoo. And I don't know, really, we're really, I think, kind of, and I don't know, Vicki could probably speak to this better too, but I think we're really, so our interlibrary loan department is in the tech services department. So I think what we don't want to do is overwhelm our circulation department. We want them to get their feet under them before we add another fun bit into their mix.
Well, one of our concerns at SWAN always is, those of you here, you update this stuff and you keep track of it and you will know where to change things when you're ready. Our concern is we've got libraries that don't have staff yet back, and if this were to turn on July 1 and they start getting requests, they're not going to know why they're coming in or if they're supposed to process them. So we're kind of working with the lowest denominator in terms of being connected and in WorldShare ILL all the time. So that's why we've kind of pushed things out to say we're not suppliers, knowing that those of you that do want to be suppliers, you know where to go in and change that. So I think our feelings are we should extend this through August and, communicate with people. When you are ready to become a supplier, go in and change that. So how do you all feel if we take that approach?
Good idea.
I think it's a good idea as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Helen, you got your afternoon.
Realistic.
Okay, then I will put closures in place through August 1st.
Or August 31st, I think, Helen, through the summer.
August 31st. If I'm doing that, should I just push it through Labor Day?
Oh, sure, that makes sense.
So now we're into early September. I'll put the closures in place through early September. And if you see that and you want to change it, feel free to just go in and delete whatever I've put on there or modify it. And know that I'm not going to go back through and do a second pass unless we've talked about it first.
We'll do a news post and a SWANcom with some brief
Yes.
instructions too. That'll help.
I'm not in the habit of going in and repeatedly tinkering with your policies.
Okay, so some of you are handling ILL request on a kind of a exceptional basis. And as Holly said, mail is kind of easy to quarantine and it is taking long in the process anyhow. So how are you all handling material and how has this kind of changed your workflows, not only within ILL, but how you're probably crossing over into tech services and CERC? I think everybody's roles are changing and we're all like doing things we didn't do before this all hit. So what's happening?
This is Vicky from St. Charles. Everything that comes into the building, we quarantine. And so then it's delivered to the separate departments. And so by the time that it gets into our department for ILL or tech services, it's already been quarantined. So, you know, we're careful washing hands and being conscious of what we're doing, wearing masks. And so we're handling it from there. I think Holly and I are ready to take requests through email or that we can send out through the mail. We've had one delivery from Rails already. And so we quarantined that and then processed it. But with our move, we're trying to set up our new systems with that and with the quarantine. So like Holly said, we're kind of giving our CERC department a chance to get their feet under them with all the new systems that they have to put in place. But I think that's where we're at right now.
So, and I'll add to that. And so, because, and I don't know if other people, I suspect we have a small, we're working in old classrooms, so they're relatively small. So one of the things that we've done is instituted a maximum occupancy for each room. And so in our department, that's only 4 people. So going forward, that means is from the interlibrary loan standpoint, I will be doing the review file and the lending list from home and generating those. And then Vicky, who is in the building, will be doing the picking for the lending list and receiving of the incoming items from the review file. Or if she's not there, then we'll switch those roles. But so at least those are 2 nice parts of OCLC that can be done remotely, and we've talked about that.
I can only speak for Indian Prairie. We are so inundated right now with curbside. Our pick list is still big. We just ran it again yesterday. It was still almost 900 items. So I'm not even thinking about interlibrary loan at this point in time.
Yeah, one of the things, even looking at within SWAN consortial lending, you know, we've been talking, you know, this method of having to quarantine things, it just adds such a huge expansion of how long it's going to take to get materials and process them for patrons. We are really feeling that until phase 4 is in swing, we won't be extending the hold maps to allow items to be held outside of your own local holds, because we will all be inundated and not have any place to quarantine the material as it's traveling amongst all of us. of us. So those are other things we're kind of considering. And as we reopen and get further down into normalizing our resource sharing again, do we also need to consider maybe changing some of the holdability rules so that maybe more things stay local, but some of the things that might be more rare in the system can be sent through resource sharing. So it's kind of thinking of all those dynamics and how we make it work so that it isn't adding to the processing that you're all doing now, because curbside has added a whole nother level of processing that you have to do. Peggy brought up a good thing too, that I think this it's going to be a new dynamic in interlibrary loan. I think a new area where we might be able to serve patrons more when we all have the EBSCO databases and those reference resources. We may have more of a demand to be providing electronic copies to patrons too, for resources and information, and even sharing with libraries out of system. Within SWAN, we will all have those EBSCO databases, but we might have different, for the selectable databases, we might have different ones, and we may be making interlibrary loan requests from each other for articles in those as well. So that's just another dimension where interlibrary loan article requests may be filling a new demand for patrons and for our colleagues. So what else is happening in your libraries? And have any of you reopened yet for patrons to enter the physical building in a limited capacity? We know of a couple of SWAN libraries where that is possible right now, and I'd be interested to hear how that's going too.
Feel free to put it in the chat and I'll read it off.
Debbie asked a question: legally, can we share online resources, or are there licensing issues that would prevent that? Within the rule of 5 is kind of automatically baked into article exchange within OCLC. So within those, there is tracking available so that you're not lending, a particular journal more than 5 times. So you can certainly lend depending on the licensing, but not freely. It's limited. It's based on the CON2 guidelines.
So just for clarification, I had asked about this a few years ago, and I was, because I don't pretend to understand the whole licensing thing for e-resources, but my impression was that for the physical items, it's one thing, but when you get into the electronic databases, that it could be like for example, our license, when we get to have the e-resource, may not include sharing. Am I?
Okay. Yeah, we should check
right?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely the case with a lot of the electronic resources that are provided through EBSCO. You need to be aware of what the contract reads. So, but that rule of 5 that you mentioned, Dawn, it's really within the past 5 years from a journal. So current research, say from 2015 at this point, And by title, you can provide 5 different articles. So there are restrictions, and and tracking is necessary.
Yeah. But certainly for your patrons, that is something that is available, since they have access to all of that, whether they will be doing the research to actually find the title and get that information, is one thing. But yeah, you can provide that to your patrons who are part of your licensed user base.
And then back to the rule of 5 thing, I think in your OCLC stats, it also is keeping track of copyright stuff too. So just kind of nice.
As far as entry into our library goes, we've done something since the very beginning that I think is just really awesome, because it's a student body, and you might be able to do this with your patrons or somehow track it, but we have them sign in and they present their ID. So that way we have a contact tracing list for every day. In the event that something does happen, we know who was in the building.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Peggy, and I think that's actually in guidelines for public services, in the governor's plan, with all that breakdown and kind of the things we should be preparing. Yeah. So how are you, Peggy, handling like the sign-in sheet? And if you're checking IDs, are you physically handling those IDs, or?
No, they aren't leaving their hands. They're just showing us.
Okay.
And then they are signing in. I believe it's, of course, we have a dated slip for every day, a dated sheet, sign-in sheet. And then they have to actually log in their name and the time they're in. They don't have to sign out, but the time they're in and the purpose of their visit, because of course we have study rooms, we have computers, and some of them just want to use the library space. So, and of course, then we're quarantining any materials that are used.
Okay. You still have resident students, right, Peggy?
Exactly. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, the library's the most happening spot on campus.
Yeah, unfortunately, of course, our fitness center is closed, so
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, I saw in chat that Melrose Park is allowing computer use by appointment. And how's that going, Julia? I've wondered if one of the biggest challenges of computer use by appointment is, that it's such a heavily supported area in terms of patrons needing assistance and help. It just seems not so much even the touching of the keyboard and all of that, and how you have to clean after every visit from a patron, but also just being close to them to assist them. Oh, Lori's at Glen Ellen. They have 2 mobile computer stations that roll outside each day, monitored by staff. Do you guys have a tent for rainy days, or? An awning. Okay, good. And how has usage been? Those of you that do have computer stations available for the public, has it been kind of a steady flow of people? Yeah, when word of mouth gets out, I think they will start seeing. Hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it is a close service kind of model, which is a little concerning, and I know would be making me nervous if I was the person cleaning down those workstations between each visit and answering questions. But it's also a very, very needed service in our communities. So, all right, well, right. Holly, Helen, you guys have anything else you want to talk about? Anybody else have items to bring up?
Can I ask Susan Crass how things are going at the Geneva Library? They were trying to get into their new space.
Well, they're going pretty well. Since we closed down, we've been answering phones remotely. And so I am now working in the building 3 days a week, where I pretty much do exclusively processing new materials. And then when I'm at home, I'm answering phones and doing email. And some of the people who are not going to be working in the building for a while are also have phone shifts. I think this week there's a new, the people who work in tech services were the first really to come in the building, other than our maintenance guy and our office manager. And then this week we've added customer service people, and then we're going to be adding shelvers. And so it's kind of each week a little bit more people are in, but we're spacing them out, and everyone's wearing masks, and we've got hand sanitizer everywhere. And it's very tempting not to spend a lot of time looking around at all the new stuff, but it's going pretty well so far.
Are you 100% moved into that building?
We're 100% moved in. We're not quite ready to open, just because some of the things we were waiting to have arrived, or I'm sorry, I had to have delivered, like furniture and some of the finishes we weren't able to get during the closures. So there's just a few things that need to be added before we're 100% ready. We're about 95 right now, but we are definitely all moved in. All of our material is there.
Nice.
That reminds me, is anybody who, I mean, most of you are not open to your patrons yet. Is anybody exploring or considering more flexible schedules for those of you who are working from home or going into the building during not normal service hours, making that more flexible for employees who maybe are still struggling with childcare issues, going in the wee small hours or late at night to process material? Any rumblings along those lines? Or is this an alien concept?
I think there's a lot of security and insurance implications when you have staff in the building after hours. There's, management and stuff like that.
I can see that.
So the answer at St. Charles is no. we are only open from 8 until 6 for staff. And so they're trying to stagger people coming in and out of those departments. People are taking turns depending on your department coming in. And so, yeah.
You guys
I
are
like
working
that
in a
idea.
warren.
Say it again.
And you guys are working in a warren right now.
Yeah, I should post some pictures. It is kind of humorous. You should see our tornado shelter. It is in a lower level in what was the old locker room, weight room for the middle school. It's really fascinating. And we have lockers in all of our hallways, which I have been told we are welcome to use.
And Jerry says only maintenance staff are in after 7 or before 7. So from 7 to 7.
So I guess Holly, you could be creating like a really fun game of find your material in the locker.
A version of Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's been interesting.
All right. Well, if nobody has other things they want to talk about or bring up, I think this is a shorter meeting given the circumstances and not having a lot of prepared discussion points. We're really all at different places, and I think just hearing from everybody has definitely been helpful for me. So just keep doing what we're all doing, I guess, and we're learning to be adaptable human beings.
Well, thank you for hosting the meeting. It was nice to see everybody, even if it's just people's initials.
It's good to hear from everybody.
Now I'm going to chime in at the end of the meeting. This is Jerry. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, for those of you getting delivery now or having had it, is that through Rails, and how did you arrange it?
This is Vicky from St. Charles. We don't have a regular delivery. Our driver just showed up one day with bins. So we, just isolated them for our quarantine. And we haven't arranged any regular deliveries yet.
Well, and St. Charles is also off on that other, we don't use the main delivery service. We use the other one. I don't. Dawn, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the formerly Link and Magic libraries are all in Rails delivery. So the rest of our SWAN libraries are with the CTL. So I think things have been stored in different places. So I imagine that St. Charles got some extra things because a lot had been kind of stored up related to the move as well. And I just have a feeling that kind of that perfect storm all came together, and Rails probably said, hey, we've got all of these bins going to St. Charles, and probably just reached out to coordinate that to free up some of their space as well. That's just
okay. Thank you.
All right. I think it's a wrap, you guys.
Yeah. Don, if you want to stop the recording and then